Hello and welcome. I'm Karen McNenny, author, mediator, co-parent specialist, and divorce consultant. And this is the Good Divorce Show, where we don't just talk about how to get divorced, but how to be divorced. Whether you're considering divorce, in the middle of it, or navigating life after, you're in the right place. And it takes courage to be here. This show exists to bring divorce out of the shadows of shame and into the light of education, and to challenge the idea that divorce must be destructive or adversarial. You're going to hear from professionals and real families sharing honest stories of resilience and repair, proof that divorce can be done differently. Divorce is not a weapon, it's a tool. And when used well, it can be a tool for transformation. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, and thanks for sitting down with me today. I'm so proud of you taking time to commit to your education and learning and devotion to have a good divorce for yourself and for your children. And today, oh my goodness, I feel like I have a celebrity guest star on the show. A true pioneer in the movement, Dr. Carol Hughes is joining us. She holds her doctorate in clinical psychology, achieving both summa cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa honors. She's also a two-time Fulbright Scholar, board certified in clinical hypnosis, is an EMDR therapist with advanced training, has also been awarded the Eureka Award from the Collaborative Practice California group. We got a smarty pants on our hands, not her first rodeo. She has co-founded the Collaborative Divorce Solutions of Orange County, which is an interdisciplinary practice group of divorce professionals. We're going to hear more about that. And for more than 30 years in her practice in California as a marriage and family therapist, she has really led the charge on family-focused alternatives and assisted hundreds of families. She is also the lead author of the book, Home Will Never Be the Same Again, a guide for adult children of gray divorce. We are going to dive into that today and do some myth busting. Please welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Carol Hughes.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be here.
I couldn't help but notice your book was dedicated to Stu Webb, and I would just like to start there. Tell us who Stu Webb is,
Yes.
why this book is dedicated, and why his work is so important, and how it impacted your practice.
Yeah. So Stu Webb is a retired family law attorney in Minnesota, and what he tells his story is on January 1st of 1990, he wrote a letter to some of his family law colleagues, and I think a couple of judges, if I'm remembering correctly, that he was done going to court and destroying families. Those were his words, and asked if they would join him. And he came up with the idea that they would create family-focused divorce processes where the attorneys made a pledge and literally signed a contract that they would not follow the parents to court. So they were motivated, besides being heart-led to not destroy families, they were motivated that they couldn't make more money by following them to court. And I'm going to be very direct today because hopefully people who are listening need to hear some directness.
Yes.
That's how it all started. And then Southern California, we were a little bit late to the party. The Northern California people tend to always be ahead of us a bit in these kind of things. They immediately, the Northern Cal people, invited Stu Webb to come out, I think it was 91, and train them. And it made its way slowly down the state of California to 2002. So we were a little behind, not a whole lot, but a number of us, divorce professionals, financials, mental health, and family law attorneys came together and formed our group that you already gave the name earlier. Mm-hmm. We really have been one of the top, let's say, 3 groups in California that have led the charge, if I could use a war term, to intervene in the divorce is a battle to be won process that's so common in our country.
Yeah, I really see it through the same lens and remind people divorce isn't a weapon. It's a tool. It's a tool for transformation. And why we would take a bad marriage and trade it in for a worse divorce, it just makes no good sense. And Stu, a leader in that pioneer movement, no longer stands alone. I think it's safe to say every state has a collaborative law, multiple practices, and what's really unique about this is that there's a team, a cohesive team that provides wraparound services and supports the family. And as you said, Carol, if things get too spicy and that couple wants to go to court and you know start a battle, that whole team quits. They
Yeah.
say, "No, we're not doing it. We don't support that effort. You can carry on, but we're going to do everything in our power to prevent it, and we're no longer financially incentivized to continue to increase the battle." And we were saying earlier, and I agree, collaborative law still seems to be a well-kept secret in this
Yeah.
country. Do you have a theory about why that is and what we can do? I mean, we're doing it here. I'm trying to provide a microphone as often as possible
Yes.
to amplify these alternative dispute resolution opportunities. But what is your theory around why collaborative law amongst the folks facing divorce still don't recognize these alternative options?
That's a very good question, Karen, and we've certainly struggled with that over the last 20 plus years in our practice group. And internationally, there's an international academy of collaborative professionals as well that trains divorce professionals throughout the world. Stu says there are about 25,000 collaborative professionals trained throughout the world. So that's a good start. It's a drop in the bucket, as the saying goes, compared to the number of divorce family lawyers and other people in the divorce field that are involved in the court system. But it's a good start. So it's a complicated question. One reason is ignorance, and I don't mean not smart. I mean not knowing, which is
Correct.
really the origin of that word from Greek. Not knowing. They don't. Parents don't know, and other couples who don't have children don't know there are other options. Mediation started in California around the 80s, so
Mhm.
it had a big head start, and it's more, well known, and there's mediation in, civil matters and all of that, so people know that term, and the courts even have mediators that work in the court system, so it's more common. But collaborative law, collaborative divorce is still not very well known, and it's word of mouth and advertising and doing things like you and I are doing now, educating people people who are going through divorce, looking at divorce, that we say there are four options. The kitchen table where you do, or the latte method, sometimes they call it. And still majority of people in California, which is a very litigious state in family law, that's still the most common where people do their own divorce themselves. And
Mhm.
there's self-help centers in most of the courts jurisdictions in the US. And then there's mediation, which I mentioned. We have a neutral mediator. We have collaborative law, which we're going to talk a tiny bit about, and then litigation, which is kind of the default. The movies, that's what people have seen, all the names of the movies, and it's really war. It's a battle to be won, and it's to impose that on families who are in pain and fear and anger and every other emotion we could think of is unconscionable.
I agree. That's the malpractice, to drag a family years and years and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars that's really coming out of the pockets of those children
Yeah.
and creating such conflict amongst the parents. And we know that living in a home filled with conflict is worse than living in two peaceful homes. But a lot of times we take the conflict and make it worse. And then children find themselves in something you refer to as loyalty binds.
Mhm.
A little bit about what leads to that dynamic and what we should be noticing as parents and trying to really prevent such an experience for a child. Loyalty binds.
Loyalty binds, yes. And one back step, the research that will lead us to loyalty binds, over 30 years of research, which is a long time, in this field, the mental health field, psychology field, has found the number one predictor of children's adjustment during and after divorce is the level of conflict between the parents. And so, one way that the level of conflict is exacerbated is when each parent or one parent, grandparents, friends of the family, extended family, whomever, are talking with the kids and trying to get them to align with one parent against the other parent, or at least use the child as their emotional support system.
Right.
And then kids don't know who to pick, quote. We're wired, humans are wired to categorize safe, not safe, mean, nice, happy, sad. And so it puts kids in that spot right away of who should I trust? I want to trust both parents. I love both parents. Maybe I don't think I love both parents, whatever. And kids are not capable, skill wise and tool wise, to handle those kind of adult problems. So that's what a loyalty bind is. We see it all the time, and it's so painful for kids.
Yes, because they have the right? We always talk about my parental rights, but there's children's rights,
Yes,
and they have the right to build a relationship with each of their parents that is separate from your co-parent relation. Like, you chose to divorce their other parent. They're not choosing to divorce anyone.
exactly. And yet
Yeah,
they feel like they're supposed to pick a lot of kids, not all, and even adult children. I mean, in my clinical practice, I work with adult children too, just partly where the book came from. Adult children obviously are adults. They have a little bit better skills already, just living life. And they'll say, you know what? Divorce happened to us. I want a relationship with both parents if they do, if they haven't been abused or other things. I have a right. Adult children will say, I have a right to have the relationship I want with my parent. And minor children frequently say, and it's in the research too, not just in clinicians' offices, don't my parents get that I have enough love for everybody? That's
right.
just heartbreaking when kids
Yep.
say it,
Yes.
and yet they're powerless unless to act on that love that they have unless the parents see what we're talking about and do the best that they know how to do to put their issues aside, their adult issues, and help these children not end up in loyalty binds.
And you and I both write about this in our book, this abundance of love,
Yeah,
and divorce has really become a scarcity model.
yeah,
Where just isn't enough money, there's not enough love, there's not enough time. And that is really connected to some of the neurological reactions that we have when we feel unsafe, crisis, scarcity. Talk a little bit about those 5 Fs and that neurological, um, puppetry that can happen to us when we're facing something such as divorce.
right. I'm glad you brought that up, Karen, because it's still not very well known. Um, Neuroscience is still a young science compared to other sciences like psychology, which is over 100 years old. But finally, thankfully, neuroscientists have the capability to verify what we're talking about. We've known for a long time, we talked about the body-mind connection, mind-body, it's called now. And what's happening when we're under stress and war, let's say we're in the war model of divorce, our number one survival mechanism is fight.
Yeah,
That's how we evolved as humans.
that's if we go real ancient, that limbic part
That's
of our brain that just says, "I'm not safe,"
right,
and it's a trigger, so it takes a lot to overcome that. So we've got our first F is that fight.
right? Yeah.
Sometimes that's what we need to keep us safe, but sometimes it's fooling us.
Exactly. So I think it's so important for humans who are listening. I say humans because I'm a scientist too, to listen to what we're saying today. We're human. We cannot help but have that that trigger and that reaction. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, fight. So we have to work on calming our reactivity and not being around people that are encouraging us to go to battle in the family court system, which is there. It's what it does, sadly. And I'm not judging judges or family lawyers. A lot of them are there to really try to help. It's the system we have in the United States and
That's
many
right.
other industrialized countries. Not all, thankfully. Then there's flight, which is run away. That's a pretty good idea. Just run and get out of here.
That's right.
But where do they go? Where do the adults go? So that would be something I would say when I have a consultation with parents. You could run to mediation, or you could run to collaborative divorce, which are, or do it on your own, the self-help centers, if it's not high conflict. A lot of parents do it on their own. And you could run to family-focused processes. And even if they don't have children, you could run to human, respectful, peaceful integrity processes that respect you as a human being, two human beings who fell in love once and don't need to be enemies. Now, I'm not saying that abuse, all kinds of abuse doesn't happen in relationships. So
Active addiction, use, mental health that's not being managed. There absolutely are situations that Carol and I are sensitive to and know that you may need extraordinary exceptions. But there's a lot of us just normal neurotics trying to get unmarried.
yes,
That's
yes.
what we need to do. We don't want to blow everything up and burn it down.
Exactly. And I like that you say unmarried. I tell parents, don't tell your kids you're getting divorced. They don't really know what that means. They think they might. Their best friend had the police come to their parents' house or whatever. Say, we've decided we're not going to be married anymore. We're always going to be your parents.
That's
And
language matters.
yes,
Language really
very much
matters.
matters. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So
We have
that
fight,
like
we have flight.
freeze, which is like frozen like a stone, because we're in trauma, we're in shock. It's a natural reaction of our survival mechanism. And many animals do that. Many mammals do that. They freeze. Part of it is their survival mechanism as well. And we can't stay frozen forever. Life goes on. But we need to know that that exists, and it's a natural reaction. I like natural more than normal because what's normal? Right?
Right.
Natural. Fight,
Natural.
flight, freeze, fawn, and feign. And those two I say together because they kind of become interwoven. Not all researchers use both of those. It used to be fight, flight, freeze. And now with more research in neuroscience, we realize there's this when animals play dead, think of possums and different animals and birds. It's that, but it's a kind of flight. They're all similar to the flight, but there's a little bit subcategories. So those are our natural reactions. Nowhere in there does it say collaborate, mediate. You know, this is our normal, our natural human reaction. So
And
that's
that's
a
why
long answer to your question. Is it?
well, no, I think it's such a worthwhile, explanation. We don't, understand our brains as we as maybe we should and could to help us. I mean, it kind of is making so much sense as I continue to educate adults in personal and professional settings, like, understand your wiring.
Yes,
Because that means if we know what our natural tendency is, then we can elevate our consciousness to try and bypass that. Like, you literally are having to bypass your neurological circuitry
yes,
to make a different decision for yourself, your future, your children, and that family that doesn't end, it just gets renovated.
yes. And reformed and reorganized and every other reword that we want to use. That keep it family focused, human focused.
That's right. And through your practice, you have had the opportunity to to I just wish we could download your whole brain, Carol. You have decades and decades of stories. And one of the reasons why I started the Good Divorce Show is so that we could highlight what it sounds like, what it looks like when it's going well. And there are adult children of divorce who've shared with you, oh, my parents did these things. And looking back in retrospect, I appreciate that. That was helpful. Are
Yeah.
there a few examples that come to mind that you could illuminate for our listeners so they know, oh, if I go this direction instead of that direction in 20 years, my kids will thank me. In 20 days, my kids will thank me.
Yes, yes. What It's interesting. I'm starting to hear this more and more. Maybe it's out there somewhere in the internet, or as our daughters used to say, the interweb web. Um, I've had several parents of adult children just in the last few months say, "We've told our adult children, we still love each other, we still care about each other. We've decided we don't want to be married anymore." And I'm like, "Great, you guys don't need me." And they said, "No, no, we do." And we also said, "We're not looking to make our family smaller." And I said, "May
Oh,
I use that?" And they said, "Yes, of course." Um, we are still going to have family get-togethers, holidays, birthdays, whatever. Not every week, but we want you to keep your relationships with aunts and uncles and cousins and neighbors and people at our place of worship and, community members, etc. Um, we've had too many friends who describe their when they've gotten unmarried as just loss, full of loss, full of loss. And we're not going to do that. We pledge that to you. So
that's
that's
outstanding.
huge. Yes.
What a gift.
And parents who have minor children can say the same thing. The kids aren't going to understand it as much, depending on their age, of course, their developmental age. It's still to paint that picture. There's something we call creating your divorce story, and this is like a story, is like a play. You tell the kids, and here's what it's going to look like. The curtains open, and the stage, and here's what you're going to see. And the saying, "Picture's worth 1,000 words." They can see that, and it's really powerful.
And we go back to that scarcity versus abundance mindset.
Mm.
As we head into a break, I'm curious to hear from you, Carol, about kind of the point at which families get it wrong, get off course, let's call it that. And if we could really advise people on an early course correction to find the runway towards greater peace, abundance, and the good divorce, where do people start to get it wrong really early on in the journey?
That's part of what we were talking about a few minutes ago is our natural reaction when we're triggered. The unknown for humans is not a comfortable place because there could be a saber-toothed tiger around that tree that's gonna eat me, as old days, right? But
Yeah.
most people haven't gone through divorce. Some have more than once. They tend to be more aware and willing to look at out-of-court processes because they've been through the battles. Well, so deferring being caught in those emotional reactions, and not seeking wise counsel who know about other processes than battle divorce. We call it war divorce. We've got a lot of names. Um, that is the number one first thing. And then most people, because of the way we're wired, just neurologically, need to still be working with someone, professionals, support groups, their Facebook groups. I mean, there are all kinds of things now online where people can learn and have like a coach that keeps them accountable to say this, don't say that, watch this video. I have lots of things, free things that I have clients watch videos and things on YouTube, whatever, because this is a crisis. Divorce is a crisis, and it's trauma, T as in Tom, for people going through it. So I would say how people get off course is not knowing other options and not taking advantage of all that's out there, like your podcasts and books. And I mean, there's so much out there to help them focus here, which is peace, respect, human focused, child focused, family focused, not here, which is war.
Right. There's also a distinction you talk about. I refer to it as family before finances,
Mhm.
kids before dollars. Uh, Clarify a little more why that emphasis matters and the benefit long term when we start our focus in the right place.
Well, that's a very good question because, again, what we know from neuroscience is when people focus someplace, it's difficult to get our focus somewhere else. It's almost like there's an addictive quality of being focused. And When we're afraid, we focus on where we think there could be something that'll help us not be afraid. So we're the parents are adults, they're not the kids, they're not adult children, they're older, but money is often very scary in divorce.
Yes.
And so in collaborative and mediation processes, we've always said kids before money. And why that is because in the litigation modality, how much spousal support and child support people pay to each other, or however it works out, is based on time with the kids, if it's child support. And
Yep.
so already there's this what's the word? Like formula for parents to be thinking they can find it on the internet. I can pay less child support if I see the child more, and maybe I don't really care that much about spending more time. But it's so interwoven, the finances and the children. We don't have that in adult children, of course, with divorce, but that's the reason. And it's again fear, which is one of those triggers, one of those emotions that come up when we're in unknown situations, because we're not wired to handle unknown situations well.
Yeah. And for so long, the model of divorce as a legal event is just about
Yes.
we're going to separate your assets. Like that's what divorce is.
Mhm.
Well, that's the legal component, but there is a financial counterweight called your family that
Yes.
lasts forever. If you share children, you have a forever relationship. And so really the work of Dr. Hughes, the work of collaborative law, mediators, all of these divorce coaches that are showing up is to help preserve that future. And it's not just when we've got little kids, it's also when we have adult kids.
Right.
And you have really taken to heart, I think, a topic that I believe has been really underestimated on the impact of gray divorce in adult children. And when we come back from the group, or from our break, we're gonna dive into Carol's book, Home Will Never Be the Same Again, a guide for adult children of gray divorce. And as we head into the break, I'm gonna give you a little teaser, which is a quote from the book that you included, Carol, from an adult child. And I think it really beautifully sets the stage. And we're going to dive into Carol's research and what she's learned about the mythology of waiting for your children to graduate, waiting until your children are adult. And this novelist, Walter Kern, puts it like this. My parent, right? This is a good quote. I should have had you read it, but I'm going to do the dramatic reading.
Yeah.
My parents stayed together for the sake of the children. This is so common, right? We hear that all the time. Stay for the kids, stay for the kids. But when the children were grown and settled, my parents divorced. My brother was 25, I was 27. And because mom and dad had decided to tough it out, right? As if that's a big gift, 29 years, we faced their breakup not as vulnerable kids, but as self sufficient adults. You'd think it would have been easier that way. You'd think I'd thank my parents for their decision. Well, here's what I learned, says Walter Kern. When the rug is pulled out from under you emotionally, it isn't necessarily an advantage to be standing on your own 2 feet. Nothing is quite so shocking. In fact, 6 years afterwards, my parents' breakup still gnaws at me. No more holiday feasts. And the question of whether I'm thankful they held on long enough to undermine me as a man rather than wound me as a boy seems insoluble. So stay with us. And when we come back, we're going to have Dr. Carol Hughes unpack that sentiment. If this conversation is resonating, there are tools to help you put it into practice. Grab my book, The Good Divorce: How to End Your Marriage Without Ending Your Family. It offers clear guidance for navigating divorce with intention and care, especially when kids are involved. And for ongoing support and education, you can join me at the Good Divorce Academy, which is my online community and classroom. And if you'd like to work with me directly, you're going to find more information at thegooddivorcecoach.com. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation today with Dr. Carol Hughes, who is not only a clinical psychologist, a Fulbright scholar, she also is very dedicated to the family focused divorce reform and brings to her work a collaborative divorce professional, a child and co parenting specialist, a divorce coach, mediator, court appointed individual family, as well as reintegration therapist. She really is not only an expert in the field, but comes with a long season's career that is also informed by her own journey. And I'm going to ask you, Carol, to open up a part of your precious and private story as a child of divorce and how those stepping stones led to the work and the passion that you have today.
So, there's a saying about the universe brings to us what we're supposed to do. And so, as much as I resisted, not even resisted, I just never had a desire to work with divorcing people. It came to me, as I'll say briefly. I was very young when my parents divorced, I grew up in North Florida. And in those days, when parents were fighting over custody of their children, they took the child and put them into a division of juvenile hall. Yeah. So I don't know how long I was there because obviously I was only 5. But anyway, that was my experience. Yeah.
You were taken from both parents
Yes.
to go live in, I mean, essentially what felt like an orphanage
Yeah.
for a period of time?
Yes. I would say that would
Well,
be what it was.
at
Yeah.
least I'm grateful I can say we've come a long way. We got a long way to go, but again, this is the foundation of
Mhm.
divorce in this country. Oh, I'm horrified.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. But I
Right.
just wanted
Yeah,
to clarify
that was my
that.
experience, and, I grew up with my dad and my grandmother in North Florida, and, that was pretty much it. I just I lived and never really saw my mother, maybe twice in my whole career whole growing up, and so I'd always wanted to be a therapist, but didn't think I'd know very much about life right out of college to be a very good therapist, so I was a teacher, a high school teacher, which I loved. So anyway, I became a therapist eventually, and again, never advertised, never ever wanted to work with divorce. And however, the universe had a different plan. Um, Working with children, teenagers, and adults. Amazingly, eventually, some of them were going through divorce, and so that's how it all started. And there's a minors counsel I'm still good friends with. One day, he called me. I didn't even know him. Left a voice message and said he was minors counsel, which is when the children have their own attorney. And he wanted to talk with me because I was the child's therapist, and the parents were going through divorce. The boy I still remember was a freshman in high school. Our training as therapists still is stay as far away from attorneys as you possibly can. So I was not eager to talk with him at all. And so I called a couple of my collaborative colleagues and said, "Who is this guy?" And they said, "Top drawer." So I said, "Okay, I'll be very careful and I'll talk to him." Rest is history. We became good friends. And as he was the attorney for children, very heart centered, very family focused man, we worked together a lot. And then eventually collaborative divorce came along, which I already talked about. And that's been it. And I would say now, divorce in different forms, collaborative divorce mediation. I do co-parenting therapy. Some of the things you get off through the courts is easily half of my practice, and I love it. And as you say, I'm a traditional litigation divorce disruptor. So I'm
Yeah.
on march to educate people about peaceful family focused options.
Yes. I'm curious where the book, kind of the genesis moment, because again, the unique focus on gray divorce. So people later in life realizing I'm maybe don't have to hang out here any longer, right?
Yeah,
As long as we both shall live used to be until about age 45.
yeah,
And now we're looking at 85, right? Double your subscription.
yes,
But it's also with gray divorce, if you had children, it now means that you have adult children. And I think one of the myths is that it won't affect them. It doesn't really matter. We don't have to do a parenting plan. We don't have to like think about the family component. So tell us about the genesis.
yeah.
Let's start there of why you really saw the need for a book like this to come into the vernacular?
It's a fun story, and again, one of those when the universe comes to you, at least to me, I always say yes. So, one of our founding family law attorneys in our collaborative divorce group in Orange County, California, wonderful man, just wonderful, wonderful, heartfelt man. I was working with adult children, as a therapist, parents going through divorce, it's tough, and on and so forth. And one day, and we had a blog, still have a blog, where we write about it and then try to get, information out about collaborative mediation. So one day he came to me and he said, Carol, you know what? He said, adult children are stakeholders in their parents' divorce. Well, I knew the word stakeholder, but I didn't know it in terms of how lawyers talk about it. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, what do you mean? And he said, you should write about that. I'm like, okay, I will. So I wrote as though I was the therapist of these adult children. And
Oh,
then, I don't know how long, a year, I don't remember. A New York Times reporter was doing a series on adult children of gray divorce. And she found me on the internet, of course, the blog, and asked me if I would be willing to be interviewed for the article, her series. I said, of course. So she interviewed me. I shared things as I've done today with you. And about 6 months after that series came out, a literary agent from New York contacted me and said, would you be willing to write a book about adult children of gray divorce? I had never intended to write a book about adult children of gray divorce or any books because there's a ton of books out there for minor children and research and all that. And so
yeah.
I immediately said yes, because that's what I do. If something like that comes to me.
Right.
And it turns out this agent was in her 30s and her parents were going through a great divorce. She had all the resources to look for research and everything, and she said there's nothing out there. So that's how it happened. And then she pitched the book to some of the publishers, and one of them picked up the book.
It said yes. I realize because, we can fall into our jargon, those of us are suffering our curse of knowledge, that maybe we should define why we're using the phrase gray divorce
Yes.
and what that really means.
Yes, that's based on research from Bowling Green State University, and they're sociologists, and they were researching gray divorce. They were researching the American census, and but their focus in research was families, but not necessarily divorce. And they stumbled upon, again, universe saying this is the time, that between 1990 and 2012, while all the other ages of divorce were declining in the US, uh, the ages 50 and older had doubled between 1990 and 2012, going up, going up. And based on their research and the models that they create, in research, they predicted by 2030, this cohort, we call it, or population in research, 50-year-olds and older will triple by 2030. Now, what's happened is that the ages 50 to 65-ish has leveled out in their
Hmm.
current research. They're still researching this now. They're researching it. They came up with the term gray divorce revolution. That's what they call it. So that's where the term came from.
Okay.
And then, and the, and the current research shows ages 65 and older is still growing. And they're saying probably will double by 2030.
So interesting. Do you have a theory as to why the increase in that particular demographic?
I have my own theory, and research supports it. One, divorce is more acceptable. There's a Gallup poll from 2017. 73% of the US population, however Gallup does their polls, thinks that divorce is morally acceptable, which was way lower in, decades ago. People are living longer, as you said earlier. At 45 now, it's 85. So the older folks are going, wait a second, until death do us part. I've about had it here. There's nothing left in this marriage. Our kids are grown. I don't hate the person, but there's got to be something out there. Happiness is a big focus in the US with our individual focus on individual happiness in the US. Um, and then there are all the other reasons: abuse, there's financial abuse, there's addiction, all is like, I don't have to stay here anymore. And since the 70s, more women in the United States have professions and careers of their own. So one reason in years past, decades past, women stayed was financial. They wouldn't be in poverty. And sadly, even today, the rate of women that are living in poverty at all ages from divorce in the US is still higher than the rate of men.
Yes. We have lots of gender imbalances that have not yet quite found the balance, but we'll
Exactly.
a hard fight.
Yes.
Well, that is a backdrop I think is so fascinating, and I'm curious to dive into what you discovered in your research and anecdotally in your private practice. What are the big myths? What do we misunderstand about the impact of divorce on adult children?
Right. And I want to be clear, my research was researching the research. I haven't
Yes.
done my own research. My research in my practice is, as you said, anecdotal, and it is what the little bit of research there is of adult children of pre-divorce. There's not a lot, but some. The myth is, and a lot of the family law attorneys I'm smelling said, that I've gotten to know through collaborative mediation, said when they were litigators, they would literally tell their clients, your adult kids don't matter. Those were the
Don't
words.
worry about it. There's no parenting plan. We don't have to worry about
Matter.
support and
Right,
just,
right.
uh,
And their hearts were breaking too because they'd been telling parents this all the while. And of course, they matter as human beings, they matter as children, adult children. So, anyway, there's that. And then the myth is, as you read the quote from Kern, uh, the novelist Kern, that, well, you're adults, you're not 5 or 6 years old, you can handle it, you can just roll with it. As though none of our feelings continue into adulthood. I don't know about you, have not yet to meet an adult that's going through any difficult thing in their life that they aren't having some painful feelings about, if it's
yeah.
a painful situation. So, talk about mythology. I mean, that's the myth in the US and in
Mhm,
a lot of the industrialized countries about adult children in great divorce.
mhm.
Um, and then there's the, well, they're adults. So if I'm a parent in pain, I can talk to my adult child as though he or she were a peer. No, the adult children say, don't talk to me. I'm not your,
Well, know about your it's not
I'm not,
it's like, "Hey, la, 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 please don't put that on me."
right. Believe it or not, I've even had some adult children over the years tell me, my mom or dad said, I haven't dated in 20 or 30 or 40 years. Could we go on a double date? Or could you tell me is it like out there? Could you give me some coaching? And the kids are going, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Yeah.
I'm still a kid.
Yeah. So those are some examples. The loyalty
Mhm.
binds we talked about earlier with the minor children can be the same for the adult children. Now, that isn't to say that adult children parents are aging. Let's say they're way older. Maybe they've got, health issues or whatever. Of course, it's appropriate for the adult children to help them, try to find professionals for them to work with, even if assisted living is needed, things like that. That's part of being a family member and caring. Some of my adult clients say, well, my dad or mom was there for me when I was 5. I'm going to be for them now. They're 85 or whatever. So
That's right.
to say, or help them find an attorney that's family focused, or an attorney if there's been we call it financial infidelity, financial abuse. You can look those words up. They need professionals, and even if their adult child is a financial professional, they're already going through the pain and loss. Uh, They can't be neutral. These parents need
Right.
neutral professionals. So those are some of the issues that come up.
I was recently in conversation with a colleague who is an adult child of divorce, and he and his siblings were all kind of in their early 20s right out of high school,
Mhm.
and, like, wait till they all graduate. And we were talking about this dynamic, and I have a theory that part of the challenge is that there's no precedent
Yeah,
for how to be a two-home family. You haven't had any time to practice how we plan celebrations and holidays, how we sit side by side at the high school graduation, well, that transcends to the wedding and the grandbaby christening and all those other events. There's sort of this gap of we were family and now we were an intact single household family and now we have nothing
Right.
because we don't know how that works. And I could tell for the first time him connecting the dots of, oh, yeah, it is hard for us to pull our family together or have
Mhm.
family sessions, but hadn't really seen the thread to, if you will, the bonus of families that divorce before the age of 18. They actually have some tools
Yeah.
to take with them. Expand a little bit more on that theory.
I think it's a good theory, Karen, because the reality is there isn't a precedent. And one of the things that I like, I've met in collaborative divorce, I've met an attorney in Canada who is extremely creative and outside the box, and she's created two workbooks. The second workbook is about adult children, which she wrote after this book came out. Home will never be the same again. She saw the value of it, and and I use these in my work for minor children, for the parents, our family in two homes, and then and this is like, what is the protocol? There's no precedent. So
The
her,
protocol.
yeah, her
Mm,
other book is workbook is a family in a few homes, which is for adult children. It's so I mean adult parents who have adult children, and it's literally like a template to follow because, as you said, there's no precedent and you can think outside the box. She quotes um, a French philosopher, um, never cut what can be untied. I don't remember his name. Never cut what can be untied. So to me, that's such a great metaphor because we're untying the way the family was, and it can be tied and reoriented even with adult children and of course minor children. It's
yeah.
such a profound quote. So
Oh, that's really beautiful.
used her work. I think the workbooks are really, really helpful because you're right. There's no precedent.
A family in a few homes. As we, you know, approach the end of our conversation, which I think this might be part one, what specific tools or things would you encourage families to think about? Those couples that are later in life and had this slow simmering conversation about whether or not they should stay or go. What are some things that they should be considering to help their adult children in this process?
Gosh, there's so many things. One, realize that your adult children do have feelings. Shocker. I don't mean to be insulting, and yet that's what over
They may
and over. And
It might not be a 6-year-old crying in your lap, but that 6-year-old still lives within your adult
thank
child.
you. I was just going to say that. I wrote about that in the book.
Mhm.
Imagine that you've got that 6-year-old, 10-year-old child inside, because that's what the adult children say. I
Sure.
can cry in a second like this, you know? So just because I'm in an adult body doesn't mean I don't have feelings. That's the number one. Hear what the adult children are saying. Don't try to talk them out of what they're feeling. Try to understand what they're feeling. Um, if they say, I can't talk about this, let me help you find a professional. Do that. Don't use them as your peer. Don't ask them to go on dates with you, double dates. Don't talk about your sex life, how horrible it was with their other parent. I mean, the finances, maybe the finances, if inheritance and things are concerned, with a neutral professional who can guide the conversation. So I would say, in general, the summary this way is see them as another human being that's also going through loss, who isn't just your adult child, human to human.
What would you say about the responsibility of those parents, those midlife, later in life, of their responsibility to manage the Christmas holiday, the weddings, like to still take the lead in helping their children to navigate now that their parents aren't in the same home and how communication works? Are there any guidelines that you might provide in terms of you still have a responsibility as a parent to your children and the family?
Yes, I would say in more of a collaborative way, though, is, "Hey, I heard somebody say the other day," they could quote what I said, "We're not looking to make our family smaller. We've got adult children, maybe grandchildren, maybe even great-grandchildren, extended family. We're willing to host, the holidays celebration. What do you prefer?" Ask the adult children. They may wanna host it and have everybody come to their place. We don't know. They might not wanna be celebrating right now. That's okay too, because the loss that's the other thing to remember I should have added a minute ago. A lot of sometimes both parents are looking forward to a new life. The loss that the adult children are feeling loss. Their
Yeah.
family together, all the traditions, blah, 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 and we get our identity from our relationship, all relationships in life, and so to be respectful of that. So ask, "We're willing to do this, to plan," as say the parents say, "and we wanna honor what you want to. If
Mm.
you wanna just take the kids, to somewhere and not be with us. We honor that. We're not gonna guilt trip you about it, etcetera." So it's more of a collaboration.
Yes. And it's possible the kids prefer their parents separately because I don't want to sit in your negative, bitter, resentful goo that exists between the two of you and has for a decade. I really enjoy you one on one.
Yeah,
But even within that, if I think the recognition that we need to have a family conversation about how we function going forward
right.
so that our needs are met as children, grandchildren, grandparents, so that it doesn't just all dissolve and disappear. I think that's what I'm hearing is be intentional about it and don't presume it's a nothing. That's our biggest mistake. It's like, we got divorced late. Doesn't matter to anybody or anything. Nope.
Exactly. Yes. I'm glad you used the word intention. That's a word that was very upfront in the collaborative divorce development over the years. And we have something it's like a mission statement. We call it the statement of highest intentions. So we ask parents, we have a little worksheet, what is your intention going through this divorce? And it could be something included in what you just said. Thanks for bringing up the goo and all of that. That's important too, of course. Our intention is to be as friendly and amicable as possible. And if we can't, we're not going to have war or whatever, whatever their intention is. Intentionality, we know again from neuroscience, what we focus on can help us get there if we're focused on it rather than just like, la, 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 we'll just see what happens.
Such wise words to bring this conversation to a close, Dr. Carol Hughes. Remind our folks, it'll be in the show notes, but where can they find you? What kind of resources and services are you offering so that people can follow up and really get a second scoop of Carol Hughes?
Well, there's the book, of course, which is available on all the any book places throughout Barnes and Noble, all of them online. And my website, my divorce website, I have a separate therapy website, is divorcepeacemaking.com, and that lists all my services and so forth. I also am a guest article writer on what Psychology Today online calls their guest blog channel, and that will be in the notes, the link for that. But if you just look up my name plus Psychology Today blog, something like that, it'll come up. And so that there's 59 articles so far over the years, so you can get a lot more information um, about all the things we've been talking about and other things as well. And then social media, it's all listed on. You'll be in your show notes. So
That's right. Thank you so much for your time and insights today, Carol. It really is a privilege to sit with one of the early pioneers of family-centered divorce reform.
thanks. I'm so happy to have been able to be here and share what we've learned.
And I want to celebrate you for stepping into a courageous conversation to learn more about divorce. And we are really emphasizing that education is part of the reform. It isn't something that should just be done to us. You don't have to do divorce by default. You can do divorce by design, and you can design your family as it transforms and renovates. And for those of you without children, that doesn't mean that the pain and the loss is any less impactful. all of us are here to lift you up and support you. And just because we're talking about divorce and learning about divorce doesn't even mean you might have a divorce. But we're always here to remind you that everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.